Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome. For those that don't know me, I am Lauren Yelovich, and I'm Business Development Manager at Peach. Firstly, in the spirit of reconciliation, the Adelaide Advertising and Design Club acknowledges the traditional custodians of country throughout Australia and their connections to land, sea, and community. We would also like to acknowledge their culture of storytelling through art, dance and music, and we pay our respect to the elders past and present and extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples today. So, having been on mat leave for the past 5 months and still currently on it, and now working out what return to work looks like for me, it was really hard to remember the value I bring to my organisation, let alone how to build value for my clients. I think the term value typically is reserved for a pitch, proposal, but it really isn't one-dimensional. It comes in so many different forms, and depending on the role we hold in that moment, the value I provide, say Frankie, which is my daughter in the room just there 10 minutes ago, when she was wigging out, is very different to the value that I contribute, say, to my Friday morning sales call. It's hard to put a number on it, and sometimes it's hard to articulate what it means in the noise that is life as a working mum, which I'm sure many of you can relate to. So when Amy and the team presented the value shift, I thought, yes, if this doesn't resonate with anyone else in the room, it sure as hell is going to resonate with me. Especially because I'm about to go back into the office. I'm incredibly fortunate, though, to work for a company that values working mums and provides a framework and support system to allow me to be mummy to Frankie and Evie, but also allows me to do what I love, and that's providing value for my clients, some of which are in the room tonight. Peach as an organisation is invested in its products that automate workflows, giving creative agencies, brands and their teams the most valuable commodity, which is time. And I think we all need more of that in our day and age. Our newest acquisition, though, Cape, is a real demonstration of how we are investing not only in our people, but back into our services. Cape allows one single platform that unifies creative and media buying across all stakeholders. It allows us to automate the creation of banners, videos, social ads, and digital out of home using templates. And look, if that's not enough value for you, it manages all the approval process, finally publishing across social platform, programmatic display and video. So with some clients like Philips, KLM Airlines and Just Eat Takeaway using Cape in Europe, I'm really excited to be returning to work at a time with this company that is super exciting and that's focused on providing value and a new product that is set to change the way our clients work. So, various research pieces have found that female-led companies and teams have more engaged cultures and stronger profit margins. And so tonight, we hear from 3 lovely ladies who each in their own right are building cultures that clarify what value is for their clients and their staff. So would you please join me in welcoming Vicky, Managing Director of Cara. Vicky has worked in media for 30 years and most recently leading the team at Cara in her role as MD, where her focus has been on developing and growing high-performance teams who love where they work. Tracy, Recruitment Manager at Rising Sun Pictures, a seasoned recruiter with 2 decades of experience in the creative industry. After running her own recruitment agency for 10 years, Tracy joined the team at Rising Sun as Recruitment Manager, where she has led significant growth in the business. And then Bev. Bev is Director of Marketing Operations at University of Adelaide, and her career has taken her both agency and client side. Currently, Bev oversees marketing operations at the uni and is passionate about democratising leadership and creating inclusive workplace environments. And last but not least, our moderator, founder and CEO of Society and chair of the She Creates board, Dina. So would you give them all a round of applause? I hope you all have a fantastic night, and I'm so grateful that Peach has been able to be a part of it, and I hope you all take some value out of it. So thank you.
There we go. Thank you very much for that, and thank you so much to Peach for being here tonight. I think we might start with Bev first, whenever Bev is ready. We'd love to hear what she has to say. So what we're going to do is each person's going to come up, say a bit of their piece on values and what it means to them. And then as we go throughout the night, we'll have a conversation that you can all listen and hopefully engage and ask questions as well while you enjoy your meal. Thank you.
Okay, happy to kick things off and lovely to see everybody here this evening. And thank you for being here on a Thursday night as well. Whilst I'm sure between Tracy, Vicky and myself there will be some stories shared and some lessons learned that we'll share as well, I'm a big advocate for the discussion not ending in this room. So I'm hoping to share a few things that you can take back to your home life, your professional life, and a few tools as well that you can just think about as part of your own value shift. So when thinking about the value shift, is that just me that can hear that? Okay. Should I just carry on? Yeah. So when thinking about the value shift, I found myself focusing on the increasing value we're placing on our workplace culture and leadership more than anything. And whilst I think the last few years have certainly accelerated this, I'm sure many of us have seen change across the last 10 years to get to the point where we're up to now. But I also kept coming back to values, our values as individuals, because it's our values as individuals that is really driving this shift as well. I know I've certainly been placing more emphasis on my own values. In my 20s and 30s, I had a lot floating around. There was a lot of floating. Values floating around in my head. But it was only really recently that I got really clear on my values. No longer are they something that is floating around in my 20-something head. They are written down. They have behaviours attached to them. I think about them often. They drive my decision-making and my actions every single day. So the first question I want to ask everybody is what your values are. If somebody asked you now to write them down, could you write them down? If you can, great. Are you sharing those values with people? Your loved ones, your colleagues, your teammates? I think it's really important to have that conversation because shared values are a very powerful force, certainly in the workplace. Which leads me to workplace culture. And I'm now working in higher education, and there was some really interesting research recently published by McCrindle that said 64% of current students want to find a workplace that aligns with their core values. That's significant. So there's this tension between, I want to earn this much money as somebody, new to the workforce versus, but I also want the organisation to align to my values. And I think that tension is only going to increase over the coming years. And as leaders, as organisations, as team players, I think we've really got to focus on the employee value proposition. What are we offering employees? What value are we providing? Because it's a really competitive market, and I'm sure Tracy will touch on this later. And let's think beyond the yawn fest of integrity, respect. My personal opinion is that they're standard, they're a given. Let's think about how our values within our organisation, within ourselves, can really differentiate ourselves as well. It's really interesting, in a survey amongst the FTSE 100 companies, over a third of all of those companies had respect and integrity in their top values. So again, it's coming back to what values will really differentiate us against everybody else. And my time at South Australia Tourism Commission, I was really fortunate to lead a great project, and it was about refreshing our organisational values. It was a really collaborative process, extensive. We spoke to a lot of stakeholders, many conversations, and there were two questions that really led us and landed 4 values. And they were, who are we now? Why do we get up and come to work? And also, who do we want to be as well? And that was really important. And we landed on 4 values, and they were go boldly, dig deeper, can do, and share the love. Now, those last two you might expect from an organisation: can do, share the love, and there was a lot of behaviours that sat behind them as well. But go boldly was my favourite, so much so that I got it printed on bookmarks to my entire team. But go boldly, the description was, and the behaviours that sat behind that: we thrive on taking risks and enjoy stepping outside of our comfort zone. We embrace ambiguity and we fail fast to learn. We're confident, we're brave, and we always back ourselves to deliver what we say we will. That was such an incredible force for our culture. And people valued having a value that had behaviours sat behind it. So it guided our decision making. It was touched on constantly in meetings. And it really drove some of the brave advertising that we put out there. And it made people passionate about creating work that people would talk about as well. And it wasn't just wallpaper. So my point with this is there is a significant shift in the importance of values. It's going to become even more important. What you publish on your website as your values will attract talent, or it should attract the best talent. And importantly, how you then operationalise those values retains talent. Because if you're not living and breathing it every single day in meetings and conversations, then they're just words. If it's not part of the recruitment process, they're just words. A powerful culture is when everybody is aligned to the same values. So my second question and thought bubble is, what are your organisation's values? Do they align with your own? Have you thought about it? As a leader, as a team player? And then if you're in any doubt, what can you do to spark a conversation, to instigate change as well? What can you do to make sure that those values are lived within your team and your organisation? And then the third area and the big shift that I've seen is in leadership. It's my biggest passion. I'm constantly striving to be a better leader, and I love the shift that we are seeing to compassionate, vulnerable, kind leaders. If you're on your own leadership journey and you're thinking about how do I become a future fit leader, and there's a great book that I'm reading at the moment, Head and Heart by Kirsten Ferguson. She talks about the technical skills as a leader, that's still so important, but so are the soft skills. And more employees are recruiting for those soft skills, and more people are attracted to leaders with those soft skills as well. If you don't quite know where you fit on that soft skills versus tech skills, there's a website as well I'm just going to share because I just found it so valuable, headheartleader.com. And it's a free survey, and it will tell you where your strengths lie as a leader. Tech skills, soft skills, are you balanced, and what you can do as well to make yourself a really well-rounded and future fit leader. My final question for everybody, and a big tip and something that I've got so much value out of, is all of this, your personal values, what job you're looking for next, what type of leader you want to be. It takes a lot of time, right? It takes a lot of thinking and self-reflection. For some people, this comes really naturally. For someone who is an obsessive visionary and constantly thinking about the future state, it's challenging. And I have to literally make time in my calendar, whether it's 5 minutes or an hour every week. And my team know it's in my calendar. It's called balcony time. And that's where I step off the dance floor, which is sometimes hectic, and I go onto the balcony and I'm looking at all the moving parts in my team. I'm looking at what value I'm adding, what value they're adding. Are we all on the same path? I'm thinking about my family, the wins, the learnings, everything that's happening that week. And since I've been doing that, and now it's become a habit, I've seen the biggest shift in both my personal life and my professional life. So I really encourage everybody to take that time for self-reflection. So that's my perspective on the value shift. There is so much more to dissect. The value that an agency can bring to your business, the value of a big idea and a great strategy that a creative team can bring, so much. And I hope we get to dissect that a bit more. I'd love to continue the conversation over a wine later, and I'd love to hear about everyone else's values as well. And I've heard some tonight that have really sparked an interest from myself as well, and what values are driving your shift. But I'll end with sharing my values, and they are authenticity, courage, curiosity, and joy. And it has been a joy to stand here and meet some new faces tonight. So thank you. I think there's going to be some themes tonight. I think I'm handing over to Trey Dina. Yes. But look forward to talking later. Thank you.
Well, that was just beautiful. Thank you, Bev. I took away from that the head, heart, leader. I am definitely checking that out. I hadn't heard about that one yet. And I loved your analogy with the dance floor. Get off the dance floor, get up on the balcony, look around and see what's going on. So I'm definitely going to take some balcony moments in my future. I feel like that's coming. And goal boldly. I actually do remember that from your SATC time, and it did lead quite a few extraordinary campaigns. So it's wonderful when you can see that value alignment carry through the team, but carry through the work as well, which I think is really important. So thank you for sharing that. We're going to have a bit of a pause now as they start to bring around some of your meal. We're hopefully a little bit hungry. And then just as we go, we'll have each speaker kind of come up in between and just kind of take our time with it before we sit down and have a chat. So enjoy your first round of your meal. Thank you. Thank you. I hope you've been enjoying this food. The meal has been so wonderful so far. Can everyone hear me okay? That's going to turn the music down. How fantastic has the food been so far? It's a fantastic venue. Thank you so much. I'm going to just keep things moving by having Tracy come up next and talk to us about her values. A known face to the She Creates community. We're very welcome to have her today and look forward to hearing what she has to say. Take it away, Tracy.
Hello, everyone. This is very strange being up here instead of being behind helping the She Creates, which I actually left 12 months ago because I reviewed my values and what I wanted out of life. When She Creates reached out to me and asked me to have a chat, I really was a bit hesitant. I don't want to stand up here and talk. I don't like the sound of my own voice. But then they mentioned, they sent me the brief and I had a look at it, and it was about values. And this has been, I feel like I've lived and breathed this in the last few years, being in recruitment and being part of such a big shift over the last few years. I really enjoyed listening to Bev, especially when she mentioned, we actually caught up for coffee, and one of the things that I absolutely loved, and as she mentioned tonight, is the fact that people in their 20s know what they are looking for. They understand, thanks Richie, they understand their values, and I think that's amazing. In my 20s, I had no idea what I wanted to do. I knew I'd just work and make, money and, just, push through and try and get an understanding of what I want to do with my life. I had no idea what I valued in my job, in a business, actually even in my life in my 20s, I was just pushing through. But fast forward 25 years and I am really clear on what I value in my personal life, in my job, even the people around me and who I want in my life. There were 3 defining moments in my life where I really understood or sat down and thought, okay, what do I value? And I had to really evaluate where I was. There were 2 moments and they were really close together. And it was 2010 and I just started my own business, which was Peppermint Recruitment, and it was pretty damn exciting. 3 months later, I ended up giving birth to my first child, who unfortunately passed away when he was a day old. And it was devastating, and I thought, well, where do I go from here? I've got a brand new business. I was going to be that woman that could have absolutely everything, do everything at the same time. You know, we've been saying this for a long time. And I had to sit down, and for the first time, I had to actually write down what my values were. I cannot have everything at the same time. I realised that, you know, in a very short amount of time. Fast forward 10 years, my business, you know, was 10 years in, and I was just moving along, and I was, you know, I thought I knew what I wanted, but I started to fall out of love with Peppermint. And so many people sat down with me and said, what are you doing? Like, you seem to not love what you do as much, and it's your own business. And I said, I agree. You know, Peppermint is not, it's not the vehicle that is getting me to where I want to be in my career. And I knew in my heart what I wanted to do, and it was a pretty, it was still recruitment, but it was in the film industry. It is tough getting into the film industry. It is not something you just, you know, walk into. So I took a leap of faith, and I reached out to someone at Rising Sun, and they said, yes, we will take you. You've been in the creative industry for quite some time. But the interview was on a Thursday, and I had to start on the Monday, and I was still running my own business. But I gave it up, and I actually sold it to Sandy, who's actually here today, who's probably doing a better job than what I was. And I started working at Rising Sun Pictures. And again, I really had to sit down and go, all right, everything that I thought I valued looks so different now. I don't own my own business. I don't have the freedom I used to. But I knew that I valued what Rising Sun was going to give to me and what I could give to Rising Sun. I feel our values change, you know, change because of our personal lives. But it can also change because of something like a pandemic. And as a recruiter over the last 3 years, I cannot believe how much values have changed every single year. When the pandemic first hit, people just wanted to keep their jobs. They didn't know would I still be in the industry that I'm working in. It was really, really tough. Some people had to change industries altogether. But I didn't really start to see value then. I think it was just panic at that stage. Then the second year I started, you know, we were all put in a position where visual effects is a global industry, and the world went into lockdown. And people were now working from home. They'd never done that before. And visual effects, if anyone knows, I think there's only a few people. Jess, you would know because your husband's in that industry. You never worked from home. You were never allowed to. You didn't even have internet access at work. So to work from home was a massive shift. And people really loved it. The next year after that, which was last year, was probably the biggest shift I saw in candidates and having conversations. People knew exactly what they valued. They knew what they wanted. They had experience working from home. They understood what a flexible working arrangement would be. They understood the culture that they wanted to be a part of. We were in a candidate short market. I don't know if everyone still is. I feel like we're not at the moment, but we were last year. So salaries, candidates could ask whatever they wanted. And it was a really interesting time. Every conversation looked different. Everyone was very comfortable to say, this is what I'm looking for in a job. This is the studio I want to work for. 5 years ago, it used to be, I want to work on a Marvel show, I want to work for Disney, and no one cared about that anymore, and it was so strange because that is, you know, that's the industry, that's why you're in the industry. But it was all about, I want to spend more time with my kids, I only want to do 40 hours, I want to understand what's the gender balance in the organisation. These were big conversations. 5 years ago, I'd sit down with someone and they would go, thanks, Richie. I don't do this very often. Sorry? Oh, okay. 5 years ago, if a candidate, I would sit down and discuss what they're looking for. They would say, you know, money, what's the title, is there career progression, do I get a car park? Like it was just, you know, it was the same conversation. It is very different right now, and I think it will continue. This year, the conversations I'm having with candidates are still really focused on salary and work-life balance and flexible working arrangements, but they don't start with that because they expect businesses now to offer that. It is, if you're a business who are not offering work-life balance and working from home and having these conversations with your candidates, you are not going to get the best candidates. So it is a really different time. I had to reflect on my own values this year. I have been so busy in an industry that has grown so much. Rising Sun's gone from 160 to almost 400, and I had to do that solo for a couple of years until I got another recruiter. This year it's looking good. I am not on fire. Rising Sun's not on fire. And now I've got time to sit back and have a look at what do I value. And I was saying to Taylor tonight, she asked me, well, what do you value right now? And it's transparency. That's what I'm looking for. I want to sit down with my staff. I want to understand what they're looking for, and I want them to be honest. Every day they could turn up, and I was having a chat. I had a colleague who would never have turned around and said to me, I've just had enough. I don't want to come into work tomorrow. It's not my work from home day, but I've had enough. I said, great, go work from home on Thursday. And these conversations I just don't believe were happening. I don't think people had the confidence to have that. So things are looking different. I still feel like there's a lot of work to do with organisations and businesses to allow people to be able to discuss their values. I think we need to do more surveys, and I know they sound really boring, but as long as businesses are doing something with those surveys, I think it counts. So I think tonight I spoke to a few people and they said there are changes in their business. They're starting to ask their staff what are they looking for, and that's great. Just my takeaway tonight is if you are going to ask your staff what you're looking for and offer them something that's different and it matches their values, you have to follow through. That is the most important thing. It's not just saying, it's actually doing. Cool.
Thank you. That was great. I took a few things away from that one, that things like your values can change. Maybe what you want when you're 20 is not the same thing you want 10 or 20 years later. And that there's more work to be done to understand what your team's values are and to have those honest conversations. But make sure if you're going to have those conversations that you follow through with those conversations, and keep in mind, what's best for not only your employees but your company as well. And that her top value is transparency, which I think is great as a recruiter. So well done you for keeping that as a top one. I think we will have Vicky come up next and just carry on if we're happy to keep having the conversation. Fantastic.
Look at this room full of amazing human beings, male and female. It's great to see some blokes in the room. My brief was to talk about am I doing this right? What role value played in my life and in my career. And to do that, I really want to take you back 30 odd years ago. Yes, I'm old. When I started out in the industry, I was at university. I was sitting on the couch one day, and on the local television station in Whyalla came a classified ad, and it said receptionist wanted. And I thought, right, that's me. I reckon I can do that. Wasn't really loving my computer diploma that I was doing because I talked too much, as my lecturer told me. And so I thought, right, this is it. This is going to be my career. And I turned up for the job interview and I got the job. But at the time, I didn't actually think about whether this job aligned with my values. As a 19-year-old, my values were earning enough money to be able to go to the pub on the weekend with my mates and save enough money to be able to go overseas and run away from the world and enjoy myself. 5 years later, I found myself at Channel 10 in Adelaide. And if any of you have seen Mad Men, even in the 90s, it was still very much like that. It was a very male-dominated industry. I turned up as the first female sales exec, which was really interesting amongst the blokes. And very quickly, they took me in almost like a sister, and I became one of them. And through that, I witnessed some behaviours back in the 90s in the television industry that really didn't go with my personal values. But at the time I didn't realise. I still hadn't written down my values. I didn't know what my values were. I just knew there were things happening that I really didn't think should be happening. And so fast forward to today and 30 odd years in the industry, I have very clear values, and I find that I gravitate to people who share similar values. And I'd like to sort of share some of those values with you. My first value is honesty. I've got some of my team here today, and I think hopefully they will vouch for this, but I'm a pretty honest person. I love having those honest conversations, and I really love my team having honest conversations with me too. Even if it's hard to hear sometimes, even if they come in and go, you know what, it's feeling a bit shit in here at the moment, I think we probably should do some things to shift the culture. They're great conversations to have, and I really instill that in my team. The other value that I really value in my personal and my professional life is humility. Can't stand dickheads, can't stand people who have really massive egos. They're not my tribe. I much more gravitate to people who are humble, people who are just, straight, hardworking, great human beings. They're my kind of people. I also think that empathy and kindness are values of mine. They have been for a long time. And if everybody in this room and everybody around the world could actually put kindness down as a value, imagine how bloody good the world would be. I was lucky enough to attend the Business Chicks breakfast on Tuesday morning. Thank you, Andy, from MIQ, bit of a plug there. And Tara Brumfitt was on stage, and she was talking about her personal values, and one of them was playfulness. And I was sitting there going, that's not a value. And then I sat with it for a little while, and I thought, that's actually really bloody good, and how come I don't have a value like that? Mine are all, to Bev's point, very dry. Now, what was the word? I can't remember, but anyway, very vanilla. They're all very structured. And I thought, no, I want one of them. I want one of those kinds of values. So I don't know what it is yet, but it's probably something fun, maybe a little bit crazy. But I'm gonna certainly rewrite my values sometime over the next few weeks. What I also did was, when we started talking about value and value shift, I wanted to talk to my team. So I actually did a survey to my team, and I did it to our clients as well. We'll talk about clients after, when we get up on the couch, after I have a lay down. And I asked my team, what do they value most in a leader? Kindness and empathy, they're the ones we would expect. If you're a leader in this room and you don't have kindness and empathy for your team, then make sure you sort that out. Respect and motivation, again, that should be the standards for a leader in my view. But somebody responded to my survey and said, someone who sees me. And I thought, wow, that's really interesting. I want to dive a little bit more into that. And so unpacking that, someone who sees me, they want a leader who sees all of them, sees them as a human being, sees them as a parent, as a wife, whatever that is, a husband. We have boys in our team, I must admit. But also sees them and their potential when they don't even know that they've got that potential. So it's seeing their capability before they can even see that capability, and then nurturing that and pushing them forward and having one hand on their back, helping guide them through that. And so I learnt something by asking my team what their values were and what they value in a leader. I learnt something from it, and I will now take that's someone who sees me, through into everything I do as a leader. I also asked them what they value most in a workplace. And the number one thing that came through from the majority of them was purpose. They want to be part of an organisation that has a very clear purpose. But on top of that, they want to know what their purpose is in delivering on that purpose. So making sure that you're taking them along on the journey. It's one thing to actually stand up and you've got your company values and you've got your purpose and you know what you're trying to achieve as a company. Make sure your team lean into that and that they understand what that is as well. And they'll buy in, and you'll get much greater value out of them. Learning, flexibility, opportunity, all of those things came up as what they are expecting, and that they are, at Tracy's point, their expectations now. They're just, of course, you need to offer those things. What was really encouraging is they also wellbeing. I must admit, when I was 19, I didn't walk into Vanessa Verando at Central Television and say, "What's your wellbeing program?" But now it's in every job interview that I'm in, they want to know what our wellbeing program is. And it was really encouraging this week to see the CEO of Santos, Kevin Gallagher. who is, I'll say mature man, because I don't like the word old, because I'm now in that age bracket, a mature man come out and say that they've adopted a 9-day fortnight, and how initially that was a real challenge to him. He could not understand how their business was still going to be as productive in a 9-day fortnight. And now that he's embraced it, he can actually see the benefit for it. You know, they've got greater retention of staff, they've got better effectiveness through all of their team. And he likened it, which I think is fantastic, to athletes. Well, athletes need a rest day, so why shouldn't our people? And if a mature gentleman can stand up and advocate for wellness for their people, then I think the world's in a not a bad place. And so hopefully there's lots of leaders that are actually listening to that. I'm going to do a survey now. Hands up in the room if you have your values written down on a piece of paper or in your phone or whatever technology. Cool, okay. So my challenge to you is somewhere in the next few weeks, take some time out, get on your balcony, get off your dance floor, carve it out in your calendar and write down your values. But then go one step further and find the people around you, like Beth was talking about, your loved ones, your staff, maybe your leader, and ask them about their values and why those values are important to them. And you might just learn something about them, like I did when I talked to my crew. And it will help strengthen that relationship with them. So, you know, if you do nothing else, take some time out and do that. I'm going to leave you now with some wise words from Michelle Obama. She's an incredible woman. If you haven't read her book, you should. Wasn't as privileged to get to see her this week as some people. Dina will tell you about that after. I have learned that as long as I hold fast to my beliefs and values and follow my own moral compass, then the only expectations I need to live up to are my own. Thank you.
Thank you, Yellow Girl. That was amazing. Thank you. So Vicky, your values are honesty and humility, which I love. Thank you. And I really loved having at least one value that's not vanilla. So maybe you can have a little task for yourself to leave the night with one value that's something ridiculous, but that means something to you. I kind of loved that. And having a value where someone who sees me, because at the end of the day, I think that's all what we're really hoping for, right? That we're seen in some sort of way. So I thought that was really powerful. I'm going to now invite Bev and Tracy to join me. We'll have a bit of a chatty chat and let you guys ask some questions too as we go. My first question is a little bit vanilla, just to kind of theme. But we were talking about what can a company do to demonstrate their values. No longer is it just it's free pizza and birthday cakes for every March birthday or whatever it is. What do you think companies can do, are doing, should be doing that isn't forced fun?
I'm happy to answer this. In visual effects, the things that people or employees were looking for was, do you have a barista? Do you have someone who's running to get you food? Are you having the pizza nights and the drinks? It's changed so much now. It's completely different. They don't care for that anymore. Now they're looking to celebrate each other's cultures and celebrate each other's families. And I think we've had to really sit down and listen to well, it was 160 now, 400 people, so that's really hard when you're listening to everyone and everyone has an opinion on what they value. But it was actually bringing a community into Rising Sun. It wasn't about the pizza nights, it was about doing a survey and understanding what everyone actually values within a business. And it might be a hiking club, it could be, you know, just sitting down and having a conversation and collaborating about maybe the show they've been on. It's just very different. No one wants the pizza nights anymore. No one's interested.
Well, the boozy Friday night drinks have gone out the window. Everyone's off to a Pilates or yoga class by about 5 o'clock. So I think we put culture in the hands of our team. It doesn't come from the top down. We have a culture committee that people can nominate themselves to come on and off. And so we really put it in their hands to be able to get, and that's associates right the way through, anybody that wants to be involved. And we allow them to then, talk over lunch with their colleagues and see what they want to do. But I think, the biggest shift is allowing them to just be human beings. If they don't want to stay for Friday night drinks because they want to go and exercise, then go and bloody exercise. There's no expectation. And that certainly wasn't something when I was growing up in the industry. It was, you stick around, and Nat's nodding her head here as well. She knows what I'm talking about. You stuck around on Friday night until your boss left, and you got rightfully slothed with them because you had to.
I feel that difference. What about now, Bev, you're into operationalizing things. So just on that same sort of wavelength, have you done anything unique in your newish role to operationalize those values away from pizza parties into something that works for your team now?
I wouldn't say unique. The uni has, and the marketing team, so the uni is 2,000 people, right? So we have these lofty, this is my personal opinion, we have these lofty values, but we also have a great opportunity to create micro-cultures. So within the marketing team, it's a good culture. Everyone is nice, but I think what we are doing right now, and we're very early on in the journey, is how do we take those lofty values and make it relevant to us? So not unique, but just starting to have the conversations around what's our team, we're calling it the team charter. How do we translate those values into what is something meaningful for us as a team? And having the conversation, I think that's really important. It's not, the culture isn't just the CMO's role, it is everybody's role and responsibility to build that culture. And I think that's the shift. It's not leader down, it's everybody. Everybody's got a part to play, whether it's organising a coffee run or organising a team lunch, everyone has a part to play. So I think we're very early on in that piece, and just shifting the culture into everyone's responsibility.
Yeah, I think that's so important, and definitely something that's been shifting more and more, and I think it's a lot for some leaders to take on, because not only do you have all the things you need to be doing every day, but you're listening maybe a lot more than you used to have to listen, which is a great thing ultimately, but it does put a bit more on our shoulders along the way. We've been talking a lot about values in terms of how that makes your team or you operate. I want to shift it to sort of monetary value for a moment, because one of the things that I liked about this topic was that we're in an extremely high inflation, cost of living vibe kind of year, which means costs and value come up quite frequently, not only within your team, but I want to talk about your clients or your customers, whichever kind of, or if you're a freelancer, how you competing for value, if you're on an agency side and you're trying to add value to your client. No longer is it just who has the sharpest pencil. There's more that goes into that. So it's quite a big question that I'm asking here. But if we think about monetary value or other ways you can add value to, say, clients or customers, where do you even start now?
So I did do a little survey, because I thought, well, I do love my surveys. I don't do them very often, but when I do, I go hard. But I asked some of our amazing clients from Cara, what do they value most in agency partner? And the number one thing that came back from most of them was trust. They want an agency partner that they can 100% trust, that's going to be in the trenches with them, that when, stuff's going great, they celebrate, but when shit's going bad at a business level, it's someone they can ring for business advice as well as just media or advertising advice. So trust is a massive one, and I think it's no longer a race to the bottom in terms of fee. Clients are really willing to pay what they need to pay to get people on their side that they can trust. but that are also knowledgeable and happy to share that knowledge and help their teams. CMOs, and Bev, you could talk about this, I'm sure, till the cows come home, but marketing teams are also stripped of people. With the turnover that we've got, a lot of our clients that we're looking after, they're missing 20% of their workforce. So they're relying on us to help upskill their new people coming in, their existing people, and you know, treating us as a valued extension of their business. And that's fantastic, because that's how we like to operate. We've had a lot of our clients in our stable for over 10 years because we've been there side by side with them doing that. Some of the other things they said is care, knowledge, true partnership and shared values came up quite strong as well.
You have anything you could add to that, Bev?
I think, and we were talking about this earlier, Vic and I have worked together when I was at SOTC, and as a client, I am all for, come on in, help me solve this problem. And I think there is something to be said when you work really closely with your agencies, you let them in, they are sitting in your office. When something like the bushfires happens and you need to turn a campaign around in a couple of weeks, or the rivers are flooding, which I'm sure you've been involved in with the team now, you need those agencies to understand your business. You don't want to be starting from scratch and briefing in. You need them in the trenches with you, and I think there's so much value as a client when you just open the doors and let them in. And I think for me, I mean, the Adelaide market I find is quite unique in that retainer versus project. And I am a big believer, and I'd love to hear your opinion too on retainer. Is for me, I just get so much value out of that, working with an agency that just knows your business intimately, so that you're not having to constantly brief and create something new the whole time.
I agree. I mean, I think what you're talking about is value in understanding your problems. You can get to a quicker solution. And we've been talking about that a lot at Society around really understanding your clients. And it's much easier to understand them when you are retained to understand them, right? So you're always thinking about what could be next, or thinking what's around that next corner. And it allows you to have a more probably honest, authentic relationship with them, you know, right? You're not fighting to compete or think of something or thinking about what anybody, you're really only thinking about what's in the best interest of that client. It's a great way to work. I particularly like Retainer Plus Project, which I think we spoke about. I think when you have sort of a great level that accounts for being that extended workbench, that extended teammate, and really understand your business, that's what the retainer's for. I love projects for like that extra spark of creativity, that just be brave and do something different. And I think that allows the team to stay really engaged and to kind of bring new thinking to the table all the time. So, you know, it sounds a bit greedy. I like both, but I don't mean it greedy at all. I just mean it as I think it gives you the best opportunity to add value on both sides of it. Where sometimes I find if you're just in a project, it becomes really hard to really, really, truly know them and give them the value that they're looking for, especially now. Your marketing dollars aren't going as far, your teams are often smaller. You don't have that same in-house agency model anymore. What you have is extended workbenches. And to have an effective extended workbench, you need a team who understands your business. So yeah, what about within your space and film? How's that different?
God, it's very tricky. It's completely different. I'm not even going to start. I suppose the only thing I can think of that's quite relatable is when we got really busy, the world got busy with films. Everyone that was in lockdown, everyone wanted to watch a Netflix film, and there was nothing to watch. So there was a lot more demand for content. But when there was a lot more demand for content, obviously there is a lot of costs when it comes to visual effects. And our clients were trying to see, right, well, we're giving you all this work, but nothing's really changing. The process is still the same. So we actually started investing in machine learning developers that have come in, and we're now trying to provide more value to our clients and go, all right, well, you're paying us the same, but we're going to try and turn this around a lot quicker. In turn, they will save money. So we've now we started with 2 machine learning doctors in the studio. We have now 5. I think we're trying to hire another 3, and that is turning our business around, and that is, you know, really helping our clients, trying to streamline and come up with new ways. Like, I don't know if anyone knows what I'm talking about, but face replacement. So I don't know if you guys watched Elvis, but when you saw the very end, you had the new Elvis and the old Elvis, and basically the machine learning guys just merged those two faces together, so you did not know who you were looking at. Now, generally, that is really hard to do and time-consuming, but with the machine learning guys, it was very quick and just more cost-effective.
You've taken me on another tangent, which is...
Sorry.
No, it's good. AI and the value that might bring to creative industry in general, because in some ways it's allowing us to be really creative and provide the ultimate deep fake or transition to something, but also might allow you to do it quicker, which changes the whole hourly billing model for those of you who bill in that type of way in the creative industry. So where do we see the value of AI going in creative services in general, and what opportunity lies there? That was a total twist. I didn't give them this question beforehand. I just thought, oh, that's interesting. Let's go there.
I don't know the answer to that, but if anyone was at Ad News last week, a great speaker, his name I forget, but talking about this topic, and it just got me really excited as a marketer on the possibilities and where we can take things. And we're just starting to play around with, this is literally just some of the team asking questions. How do I apply for this type of degree? And just seeing what what happens. But I think it's exciting, but daunting as well. And yeah, we've got a lot of catch up, I think, to get to that point at the university, but it's definitely on the horizon.
Actually, Obama brought this up when I saw Obama this week, personally.
Name dropping.
Yeah, but he was actually talking about the fact that our little brains haven't caught up with it yet, and that it's actually going to take, I think he actually called it our little chimpanzee brains or something, didn't he, Sarah? That we haven't caught up with that yet, and how it's going to take humans some time to understand the power, but the value in it and get it right. So, and I imagine in the media landscape there's lots of opportunity for it as well, and maybe you're seeing some of it already. We'll look for more of it from you.
Yeah, absolutely. I think what it allows us to do is, let the machines do an element to it, but there's always going to be a human element to it, and I think it'll free up time, but we're never going to lose people because of it. It'll allow people to be more creative. So yeah, for me, I think it's really exciting, and I loved the gentleman who spoke. I can't remember his name either, Ad News. But I think there's just all opportunity, and I don't think it's going to take away from the fees that we're charging and the way we make money, because it's just going to be an added value, and there'll be a way to charge through for that as well. But on top of that, we'll be able to justify by them having that creative angle, or taking clients, spending more time with them and having more face time with them.
Is it possible, Tracy, to go too far on value? So when you're talking to candidates, as an example, and they're, you're talking about the value Rising Sun can provide them, and they're, waxing poet about how much value they're going to give you. Is it possible for values to go too far? Like, let's be controversial here, have we gone too far in the value space? And we still have a commercial reality to everything we're doing as well. So have we gone too far, or sometimes is it going too far?
I think, yes, it does, and it can. When I was chatting before, and I mentioned how every year looked so different for us, and we were forced into situations where you had to work from home and have these flexible working arrangements. And it's very hard for companies to catch up, because you've got to you've got to deal with HR, and you've got to do new contracts, and you've got to do hybrid working from home arrangements and flexible working agreements. And it's not as simple as, we'll just put this in place and it's going to happen overnight. It is time consuming, and it also means that you need more staff to manage those extra values and what people are looking for. So Rising Sun at the moment, we're actually assessing what that looks like. We're reviewing, how do we still run a successful business, still meet the values of the candidates and the employees that are in there, and there needs to be a happy medium, because At the moment, yes, we have working from home, but you need to have set days. We need to know where everyone is so that, you know, we're not required to have additional staff to go, right, where is everyone today? Because that's literally what's happening. So I think you can go too far, but businesses need to catch up. And candidates need to understand that you're still running a business, you're still trying to make money, and you still have to provide value to your clients.
What have you seen just in your current role? Global company, lots of probably different views across countries and even markets. Have you seen it where it's gone too far and you've had to sort of rein it in and go, hang on, that is really important, but we, you know, have a job to be doing here as well?
Yeah, it was interesting. Earlier in the week, I caught up with these beautiful ladies and we had a coffee. And Tracy was talking about how people over the other side of the world were shutting down offices. And I started then a chat with my CEO the other day and I said, did you know? And he said, yeah, our New York office, they shut it down completely because nobody wanted it to be going into the office, and they're now doing little communities. So instead of having one big fancy agency, they're going out into the regions more and having sort of smaller either flexible working offices and what have you, and trialling that in certain areas. And so I think, yeah, it's definitely changed. I look at our Melbourne office. Our Melbourne office rocks. The Dentsu office in Melbourne is sensational. It's 3 stories. They've got a permanent barista. I want to go and work there all the time. It's fantastic. There's no bugger in there. And you think about Melbourne, I mean, they're pretty traumatised still from being locked down, and I think they're just used to staying at home now. But they're finding it really, really hard to entice people back into the office. And this is an office that you want to go and work in. It is fantastic. So I think there's got to be a point where, you know, if you are providing the right environment and you're providing all the well-being and the wellness opportunities, that there's unfortunately going to be some conversations about having some sort of mandated time back into the offices, because some of them haven't been back in the office since 2020.
Which then you question if that's okay for their well-being. And we're probably not going to get into all the new laws that are going to come into effect in that route, but I think we've touched on it before, that you, as an employer, will have a responsibility to ensure that there is almost like a duty of care. So you know, not being around at all, you can't provide that necessarily either. So it is tricky. And
can I just add? Don't
go.
you think that as people we need to be around? Well, I think about all the juniors coming through. If everyone is working from home, who's your mentor? Who do you learn from? I feel there needs to be a balance, and I feel like people need to be present to collaborate and be seen and heard.
I think it has to go both ways, because I think what I've really been learning and taking from our team, how we came through the industry is really different than how they're coming through the industry, and we can't impose what happened to us on them. I worked till 3 o'clock in the morning and I was back at 6:30 in the morning in New York. I don't want that for them either. But it is, I think, this kind of bending that needs to happen between the old guard and the new guard, and having a conversation around, you know, let's honestly talk about when being together is better, and let's honestly talk about when flexibility is good too. We sort of have a saying at Society, which is, if it works for you, it works for your team, it works for the business, and it works for your clients, it's probably going to be okay. But we have to always keep talking about it. Anything else you would add, Bev? No, just settling in. Do we have any questions? We've just been chatting. Any questions from out yonder? I'm glad that bagpipes stopped. I was thinking there's a lot of value in bagpipes while I'm talking. I was like, is it just me hearing this? Is everyone else hearing this as well? I'm really tired. Questions? Oh, yeah, perfect, thank you.
So I was one of those people who didn't raise their hands because I don't have values written down. And when I think about it, I don't know where the heck to start. So how do I start to write my values down?
That's a great question. And I think there's a couple of ways you can go about it. There are, I have become an avid reader. I lost my mojo, but recently found it again. And Brené Brown, her Dare to Lead book is excellent and really guides you through how to get to your values, and there's resources online and really steps you through it. I think the other thing is I always refer to my board of directors. They don't know they're on my board of directors, but it's the people that I go to. It could be old bosses, teammates, my husband, good friends, whoever is really honest with you, and go to them and just say, what do you think I'm really good at? What values do you think I demonstrate? So I think there's two ways, the kind of, more academic, systematic way, or asking people that really know you as well and that aren't afraid to give you, honest feedback. Sorry, just to add to that, so you might end up with a list of 10 things, and then it's kind of just going through them, and automatically I think things will really resonate with you, and you highlight those, and then you just drill down to a couple. And like we've all said, joy is a recent one that I've changed. I can't wait to see what Vicky's is, her extra playfulness one. But they're constantly evolving and changing as well.
I was saying before, I never listed my values, Taylor. I just had like mottos, a little bit wordy. But I think it's trying to find something, that really speaks to you on some level that you can never forget, because it's just so inherently you. So for me, which I've kind of bled through my company as well, and even into my children's lives now, is work hard, be kind. Because I just think if we can work hard and be kind, we'll probably be all right? Things will work itself out. And it's a great foundation that you can then kind of build on. So maybe find that foundation that really speaks to your soul and then grow from there. Any other questions?
Okay, it's on now. Something I want to ask is how you justify value to your employer. That's easier when you're in a role that's connected to, say, sales metrics and whatever it may be. But when it's not, how do you sort of front up every year and say, I'm worth more because, and how do you justify that value?
Wait, I have one thing to say straight away. I think try not to think about your value as monetary. That's the first misstep. I think it's about going, this is the value that I felt most rewarded by. How do you feel, that those things contributed to my team and the company? When you try and keep putting value into the bucket of monetary, you're actually downgrading its value to begin with. So lift the conversation up. You'll get to monetary eventually because that's probably where you're trying to go. I understand that. But don't start there. That's my first tip. Sorry. Anything to build on? Tracy has one.
I'm stealing her microphone. I would start, sorry for the blasphemy, anyway, religious people. Start before you go into next year's negotiation. And one of the things that's been brilliant as being part of Dentsu, a global organisation, is we have to set our goals every year. And our goals are very clear. And so I want to do this amount of learning, and I want to be able to do this kind of skill, and I want to be on a development pathway. I'm currently an associate, but I want to be an executive. You, Mr. Leader, tell me, or Mrs. Leader, tell me how I need to get there. And so start way before the conversation comes about a salary increase, because when you walk in and you go, yep, these were my goals and I've ticked all of those boxes, and in fact I've gone over and above and look at these amazing other ones, you then are very valuable to the company, and that monetary discussion is really easy to then had. What you will find is your leader will then see you, because they know what your goals are, and they'll already see you achieving them. And if they're a good leader, they'll reward you before you need to ask.
How do you approach a situation where someone's values don't align with yours or differ from yours?
Do you mean in a work situation or a personal situation? That can be hard. I worked work with someone or worked with someone, and our values didn't align, and we were both in management positions. But the one thing that we came together and sat down and actually understood that we both respect each other and what we do in our roles, and we had to have an open discussion about that. Our values were very different, but the end game was the same, and that's where the respect came, and then we kind of understood each other's values.
Yeah, I think I'd echo that, and we've all talked about, writing your values down, but also having that conversation. So I think the more conversations and the more natural that feels, the more we talk about values, our individual values, and how we work together, it becomes an easier conversation to have. And I remember doing a strengths analysis, and I had somebody on my team that we just butted heads quite a lot. And when we did our strengths analysis, it turned out that my number 1 strength was their number 34 strength. So I think, and we're about to do it at the university, do all of that work on understanding each other so that we can work better together as well. There's, like I said earlier, there's this powerful force when you understand each other's values, strengths. You only become stronger as a team, but definitely having the conversation.
Do we have any more? Oh, Jason.
Hello. So I guess everyone kind of touched on how young people now know what they want and are sure of that. But which is certainly true, what advice would you give as a leader to maybe start those conversations with those young people that maybe aren't confident enough to tell you what they want, even though they know it?
I think you need to, as a leader, be open. You need to be able to, we've all been there, and I know some people are a bit more confident in expressing what they value. I speak to juniors, mids, seniors, and not all of them are confident. Just because they've been in the industry for 15, 20 years doesn't make them confident to talk about their values. But you have to treat people as human and be open and almost help them express how and what values they're looking for. It's really up to the managers and leaders to be able to help the next generation understand that, not the next generation, anyone, it can be absolutely anyone who struggles with articulating exactly what they need and want.
I'll just build on that. I think when I was growing up in New York in the industry, I had 2 things said to me that stuck with me that was similar to that question, Jason. One was that ultimately confidence wasn't about comparing myself. So when I went in to talk to my boss at the time and how great I was and the next thing I wanted, as soon as I stopped comparing myself to other people in the agency, that's when I finally started getting somewhere. And that always really stuck with me. So just keeping in mind that when you do have a conversation and to be ultimately confident, you're not going to compare yourself. The other thing is that yes, as a leader, we need to be checking in frequently and asking you how you're going. What do you want? What's your personal goal? What's your professional goal? But also keep in mind that we don't really know, we can't read your mind. We don't really know what you want. And we can ask the leading question. And I think it's really safe and honest to say, I'm not really sure where to go with this conversation. I just know that I want more, or I need help kind of articulating where I think I want to go. That will really drop any sort of guardrails down that you might have, or whoever you're talking to might have, to kind of go, oh, right, interesting, okay, well, let's explore that. And I think then you can have a really genuine conversation that doesn't feel so forced, which will make it a bit more comfortable for both people to have as well. That's great. Is there any more? No? All right. Well, I might just wrap, because do you have dessert in front of you? Please do eat. I'm so sorry. I might just give, you could eat while we were talking. I'm sorry, go. I might just give a bit of a wrap up then. So thank you very much to all of you guys. I want to thank our She Creates sponsors this evening, our major sponsor and sponsors for tonight's event, Peach. Round of applause for Peach, please. So awesome to have your support. The AADC, Merlin, the crew who's filming here tonight, Alice Healy, our photographer tonight, and Clues & Co. We also have our event sponsors, Jackson Square, our venue. Thank you very much, guys. It's been awesome. 23rd Street Gin, our bar. Petals on Parade have done the centerpieces for you tonight. And Project Play doing some of the event branding, which is just, I think, phenomenal artwork. In terms of how you can connect more with She Creates, we are going to be launching a bit of our own Facebook group, which will be powered by you guys to connect with others, share thoughts, even advertise positions. We often get asked, where can I post a job ad? So watch out for that. I'll have all the dates of our next up-and-coming things and details on how to join are in your little event booklets on the table. Another thing we get is our next event. Thank you for coming to this one, but we'll plug the next one while you're here, captive audience. So some of you might be familiar with our small or micro networking events. And we're looking to expand that netwalking series into some more micro events. And the next one coming up is called Net and Sip. And details of that will be announced in the coming weeks and also through our new Facebook group, which you will all be joining, our mailing list and our social media. Thank you again to Bev and to Vicky and to Tracy for the honest conversation and for you guys coming out tonight. Thank you so much.